Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV again. We are once again with Brother Alexis Bonolo. And this time we are covering a news story that's only being covered in Knoxville, Tennessee, which deals with St. Louis, Missouri, the name of the city, and the important statue in the city of St. King Louis IX. The leftists are going nuts. They're now targeting their wrath on Catholics and the saints, and most of all, monarchs. Welcome again, Brother Alexis.
Hey, Jay, it's always a pleasure for me to be on Order Militaris Radio TV. Now, I'm in Rome, so tell me what on earth is going on in St. Louis?
From the report out of Knoxville, looks like 103 people have filed a complaint petition to remove the name of the city, St. Louis, and also remove the equestrian statue of St. Louis out of the city.
103 in a city that's like over 1 million? Is it a joke?
No.
Are these Antifa?
Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and other anarchist, communist groups. To make a comparison, over in California, the so-called conservative part of California, they went after a theology Gordon for citing an old FBI report that's public record that stated Black Lives Matter is, in fact, a terrorist group, is on the watch list, and 164 out of few thousand, hundreds of thousands of people who live in Bakersfield, California, got this Catholic teacher fired. So if 164 can do that, what can 103 people do in St. Louis?
Yeah, it shows you that Black Lives Matter, for as much as that they are a terrorist organization, are somehow a political arm of the elite in this country to transform America. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, what do they want to name St. Louis after this? Karl Marx or Che Guevara or Martin Luther King? Who do they think they are? They can change names of cities when they're such a small group. That is utterly racist. Can you imagine if 103 people went to Nigeria and demanded that the blacks change the name of their city? That's the level of racism these people are. They're much worse than Nazis. So I guess really to understand this situation better, maybe you can tell us something about who was St. Louis IX and how it came to be that the city was named after.
I am going to read you a short summary that John, Lord of Johnville, wrote about St. King Louis IX in his prologue of his autobiography. It's only 4 pages. To his good Lord Louis, son of the King of France, by the grace of God, King of Navarre, Count of Blantyne of Champagne and Brie, John, Lord of Johnville, essential of Champagne, and sends greeting and love and honor in his ready service. Dear Lord, I would have you know that my lady the Queen, your mother, who loved me very much, may God have tender mercy on her, begged me as fervently as she could to make a book of the holy words and the good deeds of our King St. Louis. I promised to do so, and with God's help, the book has been completed in 2 parts. The first part describes how he conducted himself throughout his life in accordance with God and the Church, and to benefit of the kingdom. The second part of the book then speaks of his distinguished knightly deeds and impressive feats of arms. My Lord, since it is written, attend first to that which pertains to God, and he will set all other affairs in order for you. I started by having written down that which relates to the three things already mentioned, by which I mean that which pertains to the well-being of souls and of bodies, that which pertains to the government of the people. I have other things written down to further honor to this true saint, since through it can be seen quite clearly that no layman of our time ever showed such holiness in life as he did. From the beginning of his reign until the end of his days, I was not there when he died, but Count Peter of Alençon, his son, who loved me very much, was there, and reported to me the fitting end the king made, as you'll find written at the end of this book. And it seems to me that he was not adequately recognized when they failed to set him among the number of the martyrs. Considering the great suffering he endured on the pilgrimage of the cross over the course of the 6 years I was in his company, especially because he followed our Lord as far as the cross, for if God died on the cross, so did he. For he was signed with the cross when he died in Tunis. The second part of the book will tell you of his distinguished knightly deeds and his great acts of bravery. These were such that on 4 occasions I saw him put his own life in mortal peril in order to save his people from harm, as you will hear hereafter. The first instance in which he puts his life in mortal peril was as he arrived before Demetia. All his counselors urged him, so have I heard, to stay in the ship until he could see how his knights fared as they reached the shore. The reason for advising this was that if he should land with the knights and his forces be wiped out with him among them, their project would be complete loss, whereas if he stayed on his ship, he might himself launch another attempt to conquer the land of Egypt. But he did not want to listen to any of them. Instead, he leapt into the sea fully armed, with his shield at his neck and his lance in his hand, and was among the first to reach land. The second occasion in which he put his life in mortal peril was this. As he left Mansura to go to Damatia, he was advised by his council, so have been given to understand, that he should go to Damatia in a galley. He was given this advice, so it is said, on the grounds that things went badly for him. For his people, he might himself be able to secure their release from prison. This advice was given to him especially on account of his physical frailty, brought on by several sicknesses. He had a double tertian fever, severe diarrhea, and the sickness that struck the camp was afflicting his mouth and his legs. Nonetheless, he did not want to listen to anyone. Rather said he would never abandon his people, would meet whatever end they met. It so happened that the diarrhea he was suffering from made it necessary to cut out the seat of his breeches that night, and the intensity of the camp sickness meant he fainted several times. And it goes on again and again. But he was born to Blanchette of Navarre, and she took on the role when his father died to lead France, also, I believe, Navarre. But she made sure no one taught him except her to become what he was, a saint. She taught him the faith. She taught him how to be pious, taught him how to pray, taught him every little detail. And it's in this book by John Bill. These lessons he passes down to his son, and in his noble deeds in defending the kingdom against corrupt barons like we have, corrupt politicians today. He was more Trump than Trump is. Instead of just using his words, he went toe to toe with him, face to face, if need to be. You went to them with arms to defend the rights of the people, to make sure their safety and peace was cared for. And when it was time for the Crusades to defend the Christians there, he led them. He died in Tunis, and I believe the reason why the city was named after St. Louis was when it was still Royal French territory. It was the statue and the name was bestowed on that place by, I think it was King Louis XVI,
Mm-hmm.
who also named that city in Kentucky, who also gave them a statue of King Louis XVI.
So it seems that these Marxist terrorists have chosen their target for a reason. They can't stand that word saint. They can't stand the fact that he was a king. They can't stand the fact that he's Catholic. They can't stand the fact that he fought Muslims. He almost did everything opposed to their political agenda, so they hate him. And they want to wipe his name off the city. You know, talk about evil. This is the depths of depravity, okay? That any small group would want to control the culture and the history and even the names of places of an entire nation. I mean, how arrogant can you get? That's complete arrogance.
They can't stand it because he put the people first. He protected them against corrupt politicians, against corrupt groups, which would be these groups trying to do what they did. But if he was around today, they would not be alive. Force.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And
instead of changing the name of St. Louis to whatever they want to change it to, the mayor should raise a militia and drive these people out of the city and arrest them all. And because they're scum, they're not advocating minorities' rights. They're not advocating poor's rights. They are anarchists and they want chaos because they want to rob your money and take your life and destroy your property so that they can reign over you like corrupt tyrants. And we can't play with people like this. It's a shame that they're being funded by Donald Trump's friend and that they're pretending to be the allies of the Democrats to show you how completely corrupt the political system in the United States is right now. It's really a shame. So St. Louis, a great man, would live like that. But you only get men like that when you have the Catholic faith and you live it, okay? And you see they had a good mother that taught him right. And you have a system of government that doesn't exclude the honest from government. Not like the Supreme Court's recent decision that basically wants to make it illegal to be a Christian in the United States. Mm-hmm. And because they only want the corrupt in government. And that's why the Supreme Court really morally has no authority anymore left after overturning every moral law possible. They're just a complete joke. It's not anything what our founding fathers intended.
Okay. The first question I took from the news article from Knoxville, Tennessee News was they brought up how he burned the Talmuds. So explain what the Talmuds are and why did he destroy them?
Okay, so the Talmud is a collection of commentaries on the books of Moses. It was composed at Babylon, the Babylonian Talmud, that's the most famous of them, from the 4th to like the 10th centuries. And the purpose the rabbis had in writing it was to convince Jews not to become Christian. So it was a complete reinterpretation of the entire Old Testament, so that every possible phrase that indicated that Jesus Christ would be the Messiah or was the Messiah, they changed the meaning of it. Okay. And in that book, among other things, they say the Blessed Virgin Mary was a whore and that the father of Jesus Christ was a Roman soldier who raped her. It also says that Jesus Christ is burning in hell in a pit of shit. So when these books were found by Christian rulers throughout the Middle Ages, they were burned because they were full of lies. They attacked the Word of God, sacred scripture. They attacked Jesus Christ. They attacked Our Lady. And they were written to subvert people's faith in Jesus Christ, because the Jews have just as much a right to know the truth as Christians about Jesus Christ. And many Jews today convert to Christianity and say they've been lying to us for 2,000 years. Yeah, because they've been following the Talmud. Modern editions of the Talmud don't have the objectionable part about Christ burning in a pool of shit or Our Lady being a whore, but they have pretty much everything else. So it was standard practice to collect these books and burn them because they were seditious. And that was standard practice. Any book with heresy would be burnt. Okay, so, but if Black Lives Matter is run by Black people, why do they care whether St. Louis burnt the Talmud in the 13th century? It almost gives you the impression that their complaint about this comes from George Soros, the Jew, who himself doesn't even keep the Talmud, but nevertheless, you can see there that the agenda flows with the money. Because I don't think what would a Black, unless there's a Black Jew, maybe there are some Black Jews in the United States. I'm not going to say there's not, but it's not a major issue, you know. I mean, why don't they talk about the fact that he led 2 crusades against Muslims? Okay, you know, he didn't win those. He lost those two crusades, but nevertheless, he led those. So what's this about burning Talmuds? I mean, it's a very minor footnote in the history of his reign as King of France. You know, so it means it shows you whoever's behind writing their complaints knows their history and is probably not Black. Probably a Jew.
Yeah.
And probably a Marxist.
Mhm.
They never forgive.
Yeah.
You will see Jewish writers, they constantly attack the Spanish monarchy because Queen Isabella, what she did, they never forget. They always want vengeance, even if it's centuries later.
That brings me to the next question, which they brought up and others have brought up with all this nonsense going on. Why is the left attacking him, our relative Queen Isabella, Ferdinand, regarding the removal of certain Jewish populations?
Okay, so, well, the left wants to destroy anyone's knowledge of history so that they think that the left is the savior of the world. They want you to destroy anything you might admire in the past, so you think that being a slave in their tyranny is absolute paradise. So they're very evil, devious, and deceptive people. But a lot of the left a lot of the intellectuals of the left are Jews, and Jews are not people who are known to forgive others. They keep grudges for centuries, and somehow they think they can persecute Americans because of what some French king did in the 13th century or what some Spanish monarchs did in the 15th century. Does that make sense? No. Is that racist? Yes, that's racist, okay? It's racist and it's bigotry because, you know, blame the people who you're upset with. Don't blame innocent Americans, okay? Don't attack our monuments in our city streets, or the names of our cities, or burn down the shops and businesses in poor neighborhoods, okay? That's racist to do that if you're upset about what some monarchs did centuries ago in Europe. I mean, it sounds irrational to us, but it's not irrational if you want to know who's funding Antifa and what their real agenda is. Liberal Jews like Soros, their agenda is the destruction of the Catholic Church, because as Jews, they hate Catholics. They hate us because you have to understand that when the apostles of Jesus Christ began preaching, the Jews attacked them, just as the Jews crucified Jesus Christ. Not all the Jews, just some of them. And not all the Jews attacked the apostles, but some of them did. When you talk about religious persecution, the Jews started it. And Christians have been their victims for 2,000 years. Now, for many centuries, the Jews didn't have the power to do it. But when they get the power to do it, it turns out that some of them do it. I'm not saying all of them do it. We're not talking about race guilt here. We're just talking about a prejudice that's found among Jews, just as among certain white people of Northern Europe, you have a prejudice against people who have the color of skin like I am. I've met people who claim I'm not a white, okay, because of the color of my skin. Well, I'm half Sicilian, half Piemontese, so you know, I laugh at it. You know, so what do you think I am, a black? You know, so you have prejudice in every culture and every nation, stuff like that. But that is not a just reason to do anything. Rather, an unjust reason to do anything. So they come after the monarchs because what they did. But see, you have to understand that even the complaint Jews or certain historians have about the Catholic kings of Spain who expelled the Jews of Spain, it's a misnomer. They didn't expel the Jews from Spain. They expelled the non-Christian Jews from Spain who were not friendly with the Christians, okay, who wanted to subvert the Catholic monarchy and break it down. There have always been a lot of Jews living in southern Spain from like the 3rd century AD. And the cultural and political conflict between them and Christians was always a forceful one. They supported the Islamic invasion of Spain. They supported the Muslims ruling Spain because they prefer to be under Muslims than under Christians. That's just, at least when the Muslims aren't persecuting. Okay. And so 1/6 of the population of Spain today, which is nearly all Catholic, are of Jewish descent, okay? They're converted Jews, they're descendant of converted Jews. It's not infrequent. I'm an anthropologist that you see some from Spain, and he has all the physical characteristics of a Jew, okay? Nose and ears and face, things like that. So the Catholic monarchs didn't do something that's racist. They didn't expel Jews because they were Jews. They expelled Jews because they were not Christians. At the same time, they also expelled Muslims. But you never hear about them expelling the Muslims, okay? Because Muslims forget about these things after centuries. I think, you know, don't carry on the vendetta for centuries. But the Jews, oh boy, you know. For example, one of the families expelled went to the Portuguese colonies in India. And when the British came to power in India, they came back from India and went to Britain, and they became quite wealthy. And one of them founded a company you've heard of, Virgin Airlines. Okay, that is founded by a Jew who traces his lineage all the way back to Spain, Portugal, in the time of the Catholic kings. And if you hear him talk about Catholics or what happened to the Jews in Spain, you'll hear what I'm telling you. These people, they don't forget. It's like a vendetta. And so he's constantly pushing things that are anti-Catholic, anti-Christian morality, because he's not a Christian, okay? And he's not a Catholic, and he I guess he's sensitive on that issue. Okay, so it's ridiculous. I'm half Sicilian. The French came to Sicily in like the 13th century, and the Sicilians drove them out. But in the meantime, the French killed lots of innocent Sicilians. Do I feel anything against Frenchmen? No, I would be insane to, because that was 7 centuries ago, okay, or 6 centuries ago. It would be absolutely insane. Do I have any French blood in me that convinces me to be friendly to Frenchmen? No, I don't. But I'm a Christian. We haven't, Christianity is the most wonderful religion because it promotes civilization and reconciliation, not endemic, racist, bigoted hate that writes petitions like, I want to change the name of your city because I don't like the fact that it was named by Frenchmen who used to rule that territory centuries ago, or that it names a Catholic saint. God forbid we name a member of that religion that we hate, It's just ridiculous. In Missouri, there are dozens of towns in southern Missouri founded by Jews with Jewish names. Okay, they're founded by Jews, and to this day, they're controlled by Jews. You try to buy land in one of those towns, they won't even sell it to you unless you're a Jew. So, why Catholics can't have a city named after one of their saints, but towns in America could be basically Jewish colonies? Why is that? Why do some people have more rights than another? That's prejudice. That's bigotry. And that's what Antifa is all about, although they pretend they wear the sheepskin of advocating for Black people, but they're really wolves.
Yeah. Wasn't St. Louis a lay Franciscan or some lay member of a religious order?
And St. Louis of France was a member of the Third Order of St. Francis, and because he admired the poverty and humility of St. Francis of Assisi. And St. Francis came to France many times and preached, so his devotion to St. Francis is very big in France. And St. Francis did some other wonderful things too. If you've ever been to school, you need to thank St. Louis, King of France. Why? Because until the days of St. Louis, students sat on the floor and the teacher sat in a chair. And he said, well, that's not right. Students better sit in chairs. They're going to freeze in the wintertime. They won't be able to study. And so he was the one that introduced chairs and desks into the classrooms of students. And that's why you didn't sit on the floor all those 12 years you were in public school. So thank him for that. For that alone, he merits to have a couple cities named after him, I think. So, but anarchists don't like school. So they don't like anyone who really helped the people. They don't want you to admire anyone who's the example of an honest Christian ruler, because they want to convince you that dishonest Marxist tyrants are the best thing for you. It's just complete fraud. It's the same reason why they'll go and destroy the store of an honest Black Christian merchant, because they want the big companies that are controlled by Berkshire Hathaway, who is a Jew-controlled company, or George Soros or Bill Gates. They want them to control the stores in your poor Black neighborhood. Okay? So don't buy into these people's lies. It's just a complete sack of lies filled with a lot of vicious racist hate.
The next claim from this news article, oh boy, that Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party looked up to St. King Louis.
I really doubt it because the Nazi Party was not Catholic. And the Nazi Party was allied with Muslims against Christians. The Nazi Party wanted to eliminate the Catholic Church, which St. Louis defended. And the Nazi Party was pro-German, and St. Louis was not German, he was French. So, if Mao Zedong admires Jesus Christ, so that means if we're opposed to the communists in China, we should destroy Christian churches. That is about as logical as someone who eats his own, nonsense, just nonsense.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, though, is they're funded by George Soros, who collaborated with the Nazis in Hungary in the Second World War. So if we're going to get rid of organizations that collaborated with the Nazis, we should start with Antifa and lock them all up. Instead of changing the name of St. Louis had nothing to do with the Nazis. They were 7 centuries in his future.
Yeah. So, to the Catholics in St. Louis and wherever there is a statue or name of the school or anything like that, we as Catholics need to be bold. We need to be strong. We need to be faithful. So many times I see on Twitter, oh, they're going out to St. King Louis. You know what? Match them. Go after them.
Mm-hmm.
Use the same tools they're going after him.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Which is
you don't have to use the same tools, but for example, in the United States, we have what's called citizen's arrest. I'm not sure if it's true in every state, but in many states, a citizen has the right to arrest someone in the act of a crime. So if every town organized a volunteer militia force, as soon as these anarchists come into town, arrest them all. You know, if you have 4 men, you can arrest one of them, and don't be a scaredy cat. Don't be afraid of a fight, and arrest them all. And then they won't go on to another city and burn that one down. So use some common sense. Just don't sit and watch television and let these people destroy the country. Because it doesn't seem the president's doing anything about it or the governor. So start a militia and do that. And immediately say to the person, I'm putting you under citizen's arrest for vandalism, okay, for destruction of private property, for physical violence, you know, just name what it is. Look it up in the police statutes of your state, the crimes they're committing, and get ready to arrest them. And get 3 or 4 people to tie them down and haul them off and have some vehicles waiting. And pick them all off the street. As soon as they get off their bus, watch what buses are coming into town. As soon as they get off the bus, arrest them all. You could arrest the whole bus and not even let them off. That would be more effective. So sue the companies, the bus companies that are busing them in. Sue their bloody hell off of them. Do a class action suit for the businesses in town, because this is racketeering. Racketeering is a federal crime and consists of use of violence or misinformation or lies to destroy the businesses or business activities of anyone involved in economic activity. It's a federal law. So these people are committing a racketeering that is federal. That's a federal crime. They're crossing state boundaries. You should get your attorney general, your federal district attorneys on these cases and urge them to action. But you can always do a citizen's arrest, okay? And you need to be proactive. You can't let your nation fall to pieces. I'm not talking, this is not vigilantism, because the law provides for this, okay? And as I said in another program, it's not against the laws in the United States that citizens form militia, because it says right in the right to bear arms, so that there might be a well-organized, ordered militia. It doesn't restrict the right of organizing a militia to the state or federal government. In fact, in the 10th Amendment, all those rights which are not named in the Constitution are reserved to the states. And by a similar principle, all the rights that the state hasn't claimed to itself remain with the people. So you have the right of self-defense, and that's just an extension of it. And you need to organize. You need to organize. You can't sit and watch the television and hope that someone is going to come to save you. If you already have the men in town willing to do it, do it.
Yeah. Got all this big talk on different radio programs that are so-called Catholic YouTube channels talking about Catholic masculinity. You want to show your masculinity? Put it into action. Save your cities. Save your communities. You want to put your Catholic masculinity into action? Do it.
Mm-hmm. Just don't talk about it.
No more letting this happen. Put it into action. Use your state constitution. If your state constitution says you have you can do a militia like Kansas, Article 8, form it, do it.
Mm-hmm. Form it and do it. After Charlottesville 2 years ago, or no, 4 years ago, 2016, I think it was, 2017, we told everyone, these monuments are going to be ripped down in the future because they're going to try these annexes again. You need to form local groups to defend your Catholic heritage, your churches. People didn't listen to us, and now they're getting it. Okay, we told you. Okay, mm-hmm. You can't ask brother Alexis and AJ to do it for you. If that's the level of your masculinity, you don't have any. I'm a monk and I'm in Europe, and AJ is housebound. We can just tell you what you need to do. That's all we can do. But you need to do it. We're not going to be talking heads saying, all these things happen. Isn't that wonderful? Trump needs to save us. No, we're saying you save yourself and go out and organize. Okay. In many, many cities, there are heads of police, mayors, civic leaders who know this is what needs to be done, but they need to be contacted and organized, okay? And the lies of the Black Lives Matter and Anti-Thought need to be exposed for what they are. They're merely exploiting the color of Black people for their own political agenda, just like the Supreme Court just exploited the Civil Rights Act, which is to defend Black people from prejudice, and claim it now applies to people who can claim that they're not even the gender they were born in. And that is the most racist insult against Black people you could ever imagine. They just said that a Black person is just as much Black as a man is a woman who claims to be a woman, though he was born as a man. Don't you see how denigratory it is? That is the most vicious form of racism. It's so anti-Catholic, and the Catholics involved in that judgment will certainly burn in hell. The rest of them will all burn in hell, because even the best ones won't say no one should have followed this judgment. Okay. So even the ones who can rule in that crazy case in favor of the majority, they should come out and say this decision has no value in law because it's based on a lie. They don't even say that, so they all will burn in hell. Okay, but we can't allow the nation to burn to the ground because we have a political class that wants to, watch what goes on Twitter instead of saving the country. We got to act, and this is the time to act and organize. And there's lots of legal methods to do it. You don't have to form a vigilante and go around and beat up people. Okay, so form a militia, organize, and do citizens arrest. And the police will love you because many of them intimidated by the amount of violence and the widespread activities of it, because these groups will bust in a lot more policemen in one small area than the police can possibly do. They'd love to have someone supporting them. And I think a lot of police departments would love to have this kind of civic organization sprout up over the place. Because in times of crisis, you need more feet on the ground, just common sense, okay? And there's a lot more of us, law-abiding citizens who love America than there are of these small groups which are paid by George Soros, who's a foreigner and who wants to destroy America.
Yeah. So if you want to imitate St. King Louis, he dealt with this exact same thing when the barons decided to go against him. What did he do? He got the entire French army, went to their places, said, no, you either stop right now or we're going to take your lands. And if you attack us, we will attack back.
Mm-hmm.
He made sure everything was proper. He made sure, okay, we're here. Stop what you're doing. If you don't stop, I'm going to take your lands. If you attack us first, then we're going to attack. Everything was just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very good analogy. It's exactly the same thing. And if you're going to uphold law and order, you got to do something. You can't just talk about it, okay? So Antifa and Black Lives Matter are running riot in America because the political class is just a bunch of talkers and fakers. I don't care whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they're talkers and fakers. Any governor, any mayor, and any chief of police that allows this kind of mayhem to go on in this town is a faker and needs to be voted out of office and never allowed to be hold office again, because he's a faker. He just talks and there's no action. That's fine for a television program, but it is insufficient to be a head of state or the political leader of your city or the head of a police department. It's totally inadequate.
Anything else you would like to add?
Oh, that'd be all. I think this has been a great program. Thank you for reading from Lord Joinville about King Louis IX. If I have some time, I got to read that book. I'm sure it's good. My brother says Joinville is one of the great historians of his age, and I guess that book helped him get canonized when people read about all his virtues and stuff and the wonderful things he did. And he's a wonderful example of what a Christian should be in public life. If you get elected governor, mayor, whatever, don't stop being a Christian. continue to be a Christian and put your faith into practice in the execution of your office. Don't hide your faith. Put the cross in your office. Be willing to name Jesus Christ when you're doing your public acts. Don't hide your faith. If you hide your faith, they're going to outlaw your faith, okay? Because they don't hide their perversion, their sicko ideologies. They put it right in your face. So we should put our faith out there too, because our faith has the power of everybody. So imitate St. Louis.
Yep. With that said, thank you for watching Ordo Militaris Radio TV. Please like, subscribe, and share all our recent videos. Please watch, share our video on the history of policing in the English-speaking world. YouTube is hiding that video from you, so I'll still try to keep sharing that video because it's only 20 views.
Now that's a great program, so it will really appear. So, and I love Ordo Militaris Radio TV, ordo-militaris.net, because you can just go to that website and immediately the radio starts playing, and you could wear your Bluetooth earphones, and whatever you do around the house, you can hear the radio playing, and it's a lot easier than having to go to a website and read it and stay looking at it on your cell phone. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on again, Brother Alexis.
Thank you for having me on, AJ. It's a pleasure.
Yep. This is Ordo Militaris Radio TV, signing off. Deus Vol.
Deus Vol.